You're not even hungry. You know you're not hungry, but you eat anyway. And 4 minutes later, you feel worse than before you started. This video is about why that keeps happening. By the end, you'll understand exactly what's driving this behavior and also why everything you tried so far to stop it has actually made it worse. There's also one specific thing that most men do in the moment before they eat that makes it almost certain that they will eat. And I'll come back to explain that properly later, so make sure you stick around. So there are 3 things we are going to cover in this video. First, why you eat when you're not hungry, because the reason is probably not what you think. Second, why the things you're doing to try and stop it are actually making it worse. And thirdly, when you get that urge to eat, what you're actually looking for in here, that once it's clear, everything else starts to make sense. So first off, why you eat when you're not hungry. First off, it's good to be clear. There are 2 main reasons you eat. The first one is very obvious. You eat because you are hungry, right? You get that feeling in your stomach, I need to eat. You eat. So this physical hunger is the first category. Your body needs fuel and nutrients, so you eat, and that need is met. The second category is emotional eating. And most men hear that phrase and immediately think, oh, that doesn't apply to me. It's something that most men associate with women. But the truth is, we all do it. You do it, I do it, like everyone around us eats emotionally at some point. The difference is that men just label it differently. Emotional eating in men often doesn't look like distress or despair as you see in the movies or wherever else on YouTube. It's a little bit different. It might be standing in the kitchen at 9 p.m. You're not really hungry, but you eat anyway. It might be reaching for something at the end of a hard day at work without really thinking about it or deciding to. It's that moment where it feels like something just takes over you. You have no control over it. You're almost watching yourself doing it, but you just can't explain why. And not all emotional eating is about managing negative emotions. We also eat for pleasure too. You're allowed to enjoy food, you're allowed to have your favourite foods, you're allowed to let food add something to your life. Think about going out, think about just enjoying something you really like on the sofa in the evening. As long as you feel okay with it and it's not taking away or affecting your life, then it's completely fine. But sometimes eating is something you reach for not to add to a moment, but to almost get out of one. It might be that flat feeling at the end of a long day. You know, that low-grade tension that builds all afternoon and needs some kind of release when you get home. It might be a little bit of stress that comes after a difficult call or meeting at work. It's that uncomfortable feeling that needs to go somewhere. And food is a quick and easy way to change the way you feel. It's right there, it works immediately, and didn't really take any effort to do. And it does work in the short term. There's that brief release or brief moments of whatever you want to call it. Let's say a few moments in your head where that noise is just a little bit quieter. But here's the part that matters. That feeling underneath doesn't actually go away. It's like changing the channel without actually turning off the TV. And because that underlying need or feeling was never actually met, it just comes back. Maybe not today, but possibly tomorrow. It doesn't really matter how much you ate. It might be 1 or 10 from the packet. That underlying need is emotional, and food is not fixing the emotion, it's just covering it. And then you also have the guilt on top of that. You can tell me if you relate to this, but it's that feeling of, why did I just eat that? I told myself yesterday today would be different, but I just did it again. I can't control myself. But here we are again. And the longer this goes on, the more automatic this pathway in your brain becomes. You get an uncomfortable feeling, you eat. Sometimes you fight it a little bit, but that's tiring and you end up eating anyway. So sometimes you just give in anyway without even questioning or fighting it. What's the point, right? If I'm going to give in, I may as well just have it now. And that's why it feels like something takes over you. It's almost like this isn't me, it's a monster inside me. And I just can't control it. It always wins. Part of you wants it, but then the other part doesn't. And the part of you that wants it is almost just to get rid of that feeling. So it's actually quite a mix of questions and emotions here. And then also, the more times you do it, the bigger the pull comes next time. So if you want to understand your own specific patterns that are driving this for you, I have a short assessment linked down below. It takes just 60 seconds and tells you which exact patterns are driving your eating and what steps you need to take to actually fix it for good. It's down there below. Now, why what you've tried in the past and your usual strategies just don't work to fix this kind of eating. So I mentioned before that there's one specific thing that men often do in the moment before they eat that often makes it more certain that they will actually eat. So here that is. When a craving arrives, the instinct is to push back against it, to fight it, right? Like the aim is to get rid of it, to override it, to have it not be there. And in the physical world, that approach works very well. Problem arrives, you eliminate it, and then everything is good. So applying the same logic to cravings feels just the natural way to solve them. So the fight with that craving starts. You try and distract yourself, you bargain with it, you say, oh, I'll have it later, or no, I'm being really good, I'm on this plan. You might put rules in place like, I'm fasting, I'm only allowed to eat at this time, or I'm only allowed this amount of calories or points or whatever per day. You might even say, well, I'm saving these calories for later when I know I'm going to give in anyway. So that's it. You try and challenge that thought. You try and talk yourself out of it, at least delay it until later. But there's a saying I really like, and it's what you resist persists. The more energy you direct at craving, the more persistent it seems to become. Every round of that internal negotiation keeps your thoughts locked on that food. And it's exhausting, right? You know that. And like I said, eventually you just end up eating anyway. Even if you told yourself you wouldn't, you didn't intend to. But this pattern just seems to repeat itself. There's an exercise that explains this well. So imagine you have a thought, feeling, or craving written on a piece of paper. Now imagine holding that piece of paper out in front of you, that thought, that feeling, that craving, arms extended, pushing really hard. That is the fight. That is fighting it. Now tune into what's actually happening. That is really tiring. It takes a lot of energy. Plus also, where is your focus? Your focus is on the thought, the feeling, or the craving, whatever it is. It's not on what you're actually trying to do in the moment or what matters to you. So at some point, you stop fighting that craving, or you don't even try anymore because you know you're going to give in anyway. And that's like letting that piece of paper come towards your face and almost cover your entire face. The urge becomes the only thing you can see. The food becomes so urgent and the feeling feels unbearable. So when that happens, the urge is all you can see. That's all you can think about. Your goals, your reasons for trying, the bigger picture, that's all out the window. And this is when that feeling of something taking over you appears. All you can do is follow what it's trying to tell you. Eat the chocolate, whatever that might be, just to get rid of that uncomfortable feeling. And yes, eating the chocolate probably does make you feel better, at least in the moment, because it takes away that urge and uncomfortable feeling. But that is also the problem, because eating is taking away that feeling, distracting you from it, without actually solving why it was there in the first place. And that is the key point here. If it was stress, it would just come back tomorrow. And eating is still the same way you deal with it. The same with boredom or that low-grade tension that builds across your day. If eating is the way you deal with that, then that same pattern is just going to repeat itself over and over again. If you think about it, the eating never actually solved those issues. It just covered them up in the moment, so you felt better. So eating was doing a job for you, it just didn't solve the root cause. And some men try and limit the damage, so they may swap something that they didn't really want to eat for something else. Maybe it's lower in calories and it'll have less impact on their diet or their weight. Other people, and this was me as well, save calories across the day, eat less, so there's more room when you do give in and eat more than you wanted to, and it makes you feel like less of a failure or has less impact again on your diet. But both of those are still giving in. You're not fighting anymore, but you're giving in. You just switched the food you're going to eat for something else and still ate it. You might not have thought about it in this way, but it's still there to meet that emotional need. And every time you do react to that urge, whatever you eat, that pattern gets a little bit stronger. Swapping it for something else or saving the calories just made it a little bit easier to justify. And again, on top of that, you have all the guilt and self-talk, maybe a little bit less because of the swap or saving the calories, but you still ate when you didn't really want to, even if you saved the calories or you swapped it for something else. This is just a way that your brain has learned to get around the situation, to manage that guilt, to make you feel a little bit better about it. And also on top of that, the paradox of the guilt and self-talk that happens because you ate when you didn't want it to need to go somewhere as well. And if you use food to manage your emotions, then you also may get more cravings because of what's going on up here, because you ate when you didn't want to. Isn't that a paradox? And with this, let's say emotional eating, the evening is often the hardest. Most men I talk to often tell me that they were fine during the day, but it all fell apart in the evening. But the truth is, a lot of the time, they're not really fine during the day. In actual fact, it's probably that low-level stress and background noise that builds throughout the day that ends up in that evening binge. Think about your demands over the day and how they affect and drain your willpower. There might be high-stake decisions to make and carry, people to manage, background rumination and thoughts that happen across the whole day. You have to remember that this slowly drains your willpower and depletes you. And if you also have low self-worth and behaviours like perfectionism as well running in the background, this adds to that background depletion. Those things almost force you to change your behaviour to feel enough. So with perfectionism, for example, you go above and beyond to not feel judged. You do more than you needed to, and this takes away more of your energy. And so by evening, your mental resources, your willpower tend to be at their lowest point of the day. It's here that you're more likely to get urges, especially when you sit down and there's nothing to do, to make you feel better. And you also have less capacity to actually manage them. And then we also have to think about diet and restriction. If your approach to food involves rules around what you can and can't eat, good and bad foods, those things that you told yourself or stopped yourself eating don't just go away. They sit in the background, they often pop back into your mind. They become a part of the food noise. And often the more you try to not think about them, the more present they become. Remember what I said? The more you resist, the more it persists. And here's the scientific reason. The more you think about something, the more it seems important. Your brain is like, well, that keeps coming up, so let's just register that, let's flag that as important. And the more attention something gets, the more your brain starts to treat it as something that needs dealing with. And so this is why the food you're trying to avoid becomes something you can't stop thinking about. That rule of, I should not eat this, is the very thing that is creating the pull. And that's food noise in action. That constant low-level mental chatter, those thoughts and feelings around food that come and go. They've been running all day. They never fully switch off. And by evening, it's been running for hours. So diet rules, calorie targets, fasting windows, they all frame food as something that needs to be constantly managed and constantly checked. And constant managing and constant checking means constant attention, which is the complete opposite of what we're trying to achieve here. And there's one more thing that makes this worse as well. It's the way that most men go after their physical body goal. It happens like this. You decide what you want to look like. You set rules and a training program to get you there. And without realizing it, you end up tying how you feel to whether you get there or not. And so it stops being something you want and starts being something you need. And that's where it becomes complicated. Once something becomes a necessity, not getting it doesn't just feel like a setback. It almost feels personal, a judgment about who you are as a person. It's like, if I can't sort this one thing, I have all the rest of my life in order. What does this say about me? And here's what that does to your brain. Similar to before, when something seems important and you keep thinking about it, but it also means something about who you are, it gets marked as a threat. It gets marked as super important. Your brain treats it as urgent. It stays alert to it. It keeps going back to it. So something that started out as a goal, your fat loss, becomes something that your brain is tuned into and becomes super alert to. Something that it's constantly checking for. Am I enough? Are people judging me? Have I got to my goal? Why haven't I? All these things. And this adds so much to that background noise. So what happens? You have this discomfort, you're super tired, and your brain goes to the best way it knows how to resolve this. It gives you urges and cravings that you then have to fight again, and you end up giving in, and it starts this cycle all over again. And this also explains why some men start developing behaviours that almost look disordered, that don't help them long term. For example, not going out with friends for a meal. They justify it because the body thing is more important to them. It's a threat. It feels like a threat. And there's that pressure to resolve it. And at some point we have to start asking the question, if we have these behaviours, of what was the goal in the first place? I've stopped going out because I'm trying to feel enough and not feel judged, but I'm missing out on life. And that is also reducing my happiness and fulfillment. So again, we can see there's layers of behavior here. And it's almost like a paradox again. The thing you're trying to solve here is causing another problem over here. So the harder you push, the more you restrict, the higher you set the bar, the bigger and stronger the pull in the opposite direction becomes. If we think about it, discipline and loss of control are not the opposites. Quite often, one is causing the other. And if you want to know which of these patterns is most active for you, I have an assessment in the description below. It's 60 seconds, really quick. It will help you see which patterns you have, what you need to do to solve them long term to get the weight loss and the body you want, down there in the description below. So finally, the last section, what you actually want when you get these urges and cravings for food. So all of that fight, the restriction, the pressure, it all points to one thing, that this was never about the food. So what is actually going on in the moment when you get these cravings, urges for food? Simply put, you are trying to change how you feel. That's it. Some kind of emotion or feeling has built up, whether it's stress, boredom, tension, or background noise from across your day. And food is simply the fastest way your brain has learned to get rid of that feeling, at least for a while. And importantly, it's not weakness or lack of willpower. It's just a pattern your brain has learned to help you in the moment. The first thing that needs to change is awareness. Most men go through this cycle completely on autopilot, and this is normal. So the feeling arrives, the urge to eat follows, and you either fight it or you just give in anyway, without much thought to what's actually going on. But just slowing down to realize what's actually happening is more powerful than any rule or restriction you may put in place. Not judging it, not trying to stop it, just noticing what's going on, just noticing it being there. Ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? What is this urge all about? And that awareness creates a gap. And it's in this gap that something different becomes possible. The second thing is a fundamental shift in how you think about the urge. And this is probably the opposite of what feels instinctive. Think about it. When you get an urge or a craving, what is the goal? It's usually to get rid of it, right? Like I said before, you enter into that fight with it. You try and override it, you try and remove it. But as we discussed, that just doesn't work, does it? The more you engage with the thought, the more tired you get, and you end up giving in anyway. At some point, you're going to eat. So let's be super clear on this. That just doesn't work. So how about we change the way we think about it? The goal isn't to get rid of the urge. I'll let you sit with that for a second. The goal isn't to get rid of the urge. We shift our goal a little bit, and it becomes having the urge without it actually taking over. And those are completely different things. One is a fight that you'll keep losing, and the other is a skill that you can build over time. And what I mean by that is, instead of this fight with the craving, we make space for it, extra space. It's almost like laying the paper on our lap. Here we can still see it, we can observe it, but it's not controlling us, and we're not in a fight with it. And more importantly, from this position, your attention can go back on what matters to you, what you're trying to do in the moment, how you're trying to live your life. And this is a skill, one that can be built, and not through more willpower, more discipline, or more rules around your food, but understanding the pattern and allowing your brain to experience the feeling without you needing to get rid of it. And once you're able to sit with these feelings that are driving these behaviors and understand them a little bit more, that's when you can start to resolve those as well. So the next time the urge or the craving arrives, the question isn't, why am I having this? What's happening to me? Why do I keep giving in? It's, what am I feeling right now? And what am I actually looking for? That question alone is so powerful and changes the relationship with the moment. And this is where everything starts. Now, what we've covered usually happens across the week, but there's a very specific pattern of this that usually trips most men up. The weekend, why you do well all week, and then by Friday night, everything seems to fall apart. What's actually driving that? And again, it's not willpower. This next video explains.